Welcome back. Today you're going to be generating your ideas and planning out what kind of weaving you want to make. Our essential questions are, how will I plan out my weaving? What patterns will I choose? We'll begin by looking at some pictures and a demonstration. Then you'll have studio time to plan things out. Then you'll clean up, and last we'll share or reflect at the end. The studio habit we're focusing on today is called envision. We're going to plan out our idea before we get started. Let's begin by taking a look at some artist examples to get our ideas going. Okay, so we're going to spend part of class today just deciding how we want our weaving to look and planning it out. You might have noticed in the artist examples today how many patterns you saw in the different examples. So often artists will plan their work first. So you might take a look at the materials you have to work with and decide how you want to plan out your weaving or your strips that you're putting through your weft. So you might want to do that by planning the colors you're going to use. You could put them into a pattern, which means you're just going to repeat them. You could decide on, if you have different things like a piece of string and a ribbon and a paper piece, maybe a pattern with those different materials. So if I had, say I had a green string, maybe I want to plan, I'm going to weave my green string first, and then maybe I have a black ribbon. So my ribbon's going to be a little thicker, so I'm going to put it second. So I'm going to plan that out. So a green string, then I have a black ribbon, and then maybe I have a blue string. It's really thin string, and then I have a pink piece of paper that's really thick. So that's going to be my pattern. So I'm going to color this in real quick. So I'm planning out my weaving before I do it. So I'm going to put my green string, black ribbon, blue string, and then my pink piece of paper. So then to make it a pattern, you have to repeat. So I'm going to repeat the same thing. So after the first thing in my pattern was my green string. So I'm going to color in my green string. Next in my pattern was the black ribbon. So I'm going to put a black ribbon next. It was pretty thick. So I'm going to color it nice and thick, like a black ribbon. Next in my pattern, can you find what's next in the pattern? It would be my blue string, my thin blue string. So that goes next. And then what's last in the pattern? What's last in the pattern is this really thick pink piece of paper. So you can do this on just a blank piece of paper, or if you have a sketchbook, you can plan it out in your sketchbook. And then you'll use this as your guide when you get started on your actual weaving. So you're going to kind of look at it for reference to see what your plan was. All right, what comes after the big pink piece of paper in my pattern? It would be the green string, right? So let's do a green string, sort of thick green string. What's next in the pattern? Next in the pattern would be my black ribbon. So I'm going to make a black ribbon. It's kind of thick. So you might have patterned paper to work with. You might have a piece of fabric. You might have different color strings, so you see what your materials are and then decide how you want to make a pattern with them on your weaving. Next after that was my thin blue string. And last in my pattern was, you guessed it, it was the thick piece of pink paper. Okay, so see how nice that looks? Now I have a pattern. It's these things have been repeated to make a pattern. And then when I go to do my weaving, I'm gonna have this piece of paper right next to it. And that way I can see what would be the first thing I would weave through my warp strands. I would need to get my green string, and that would go first. And then next I would put my black ribbon through, over, under, over, under. So we're just planning out sort of how we want our weaving to look today. And then if you have time after you get it planned out, you can actually gather these materials. So now I know what materials I'll need. I'm gonna need some green string, I'll need some blue string, I'll need some black ribbon, and I'll need some pink paper. So you decide what materials you want to use, and you decide how you want to arrange those in a pattern. And then once you get it all planned out, then you can get started on actually creating your weaving. I hope you have fun today. It's time to create. Go ahead and pause the video and get started. When you're finished, you can press play for the reflection questions. Now let's reflect on what you've done. Number 1, what pattern did you plan out for your weaving? Number 2, what materials do you want to use? Thanks for joining me today. See you next week.